Hello, after I shot the video, you asked, I answer. I felt it was too long, it was over 30 minutes, so I actually cut out almost 10 minutes worth of an answer to one of my question. But in hindsight, I've kind of glad I didn't delete it, but I figure I would include it uh, in a separate video because it's a good question, and hopefully my answer is something that you want to listen to. So if you care to listen to Mike, my answer to Mike's question on what would be my suggestion to Marvel and DC if I can tell them to do something, then go ahead and keep on watching. Okay, thanks. One another part of his contest was a question that um, asked if we can make a suggestion to Marvel and DC, what would that be? I think that's the gist of the question. And my answer to that question is go back to cheaper materials as far as paper, because I think there are a large segment of people, me, that just can't justify paying $3.99, $4.99, or $5.99 for a book. What if you knock it down to $1.99 and use cheaper paper? Perhaps the readership will expand to a point where it would make up for the loss in readership. I think the industry has been too reactive to decreasing readership by raising prices to make up for it. Okay, I mentioned this so many times already. Years ago, you have books that would sell 300, 400,000 copies, and they would sell for $1. Okay, today the same title, say Spider-Man, instead of having 400,000 people that buy the books back in the mid 80s and late 80s, you have 100,000 copies in circulation, and the price is $3.99. So net it's the same revenue pool to the creators, to Marvel. And I think that's what Marvel and DC and many other companies are doing, is they are playing with the accounting to a point where they're trying to earn a living by figuring out how much they can charge per books and survive instead of trying to do something to expand the readership. And I think that's my biggest problem with the industry today, is the price hike has more to do with the knee-jerk constant reaction to declining readerships. Sure, there are a lot of things written about how there are more comic books, there's more revenue in the hobby today now than ever, but that's misleading. Okay, that's misleading. Back in the 70s, 80s, even early, well, 70s and 80s, you have 100 titles. Now you have 400 titles. The market is flooded. It's a bubble in so many different titles, and many of which will not survive. If they keep trying to milk every single penny out of the few readers that are willing to fork out $4.99 right now, eventually that can't sustain itself. You cannot. It's just not a smart business model. So for me, if I have a suggestion to the big boys or even to Image, is figure out a way to produce books in cheaper paper. I think the outcry from people that complain about cheaper paper will be not as much as a joy of people saying, wow, I can buy a comic book for $1.99. Um, I think the only people that would complain a little bit about cheaper material, cheaper paper, is those that are more focused on collecting on super high grade, the one that want 9.8, 9.9, 10.0 modern books, because when you go down to the cheaper material, the odds of producing 9.9 or 10.0 is reduced significantly. So there's a small segment of collectors out there that collect 9.9, 10.0. They may not be happy, but I think trying to open the market for the not so deep pocket collectors may be a win in the end. And on top of that, one of the things that bothers me for so long now is one thing about the comic book in the 60s and 70s. They are written for a younger audience. Sure, the older me today, whenever I read a Silver Age book or even early Bronze Age books, I find the story to be very simplistic, the dialogue to be very clunky because they were not written for the more sophisticated readers. And in the 80s, starting from the 80s onward, as a comic book fan got older and stick with the hobby, writers and artists has also changed their focus target audience. Okay, no longer do you have writers that focus on trying to please the 10 to 20 age group. Now they're trying to please the 18 to 40 age group. I think that hurt the hobby more than many can believe, because I think by not producing materials that are attractive and entertaining for younger audience to draw them into the hobby earlier, it prevents many of them to grow up with the hobby. There's nothing wrong with producing lines that target the 10, 8 years old out there and producing them cheap on cheaper paper, okay? Because kids will beat up the books, okay? You don't need to make fancy books with fancy paper, okay? Produce on junky stuff, junky paper, junky pulp, but make them $1.50. You gotta make them so accessible so that parents and kids feel that the trade-off are there for them, this value, because right now, as I mentioned in other videos, when you can buy a game on your iPhone or iPad for 99 cents to $2.99, and it will provide hours, if not hundreds of hours of entertainment for the kids, it's hard to justify spending $3.99 on a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle book that will last 5 minutes. That book can be cut in half if it were produced cheaply. Because at the end of the day, the kids will read it, they will beat it up, okay? So I think there are not enough emphasis and focus on trying to gain younger audience, okay? I could be completely wrong because I'm so out of the market for so many years now. I just base this on my once a month trip to the comic book store and see the crazy prices everywhere. Even the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle book that I buy for my son once in a while. It's just not economically feasible for the young readers to go in there and start buying or buy books and be interested in the hobby. Many newer readers tend to be, the 20 something people that have jobs, people that have at least some disposable income. It's no longer kids can save a buck or two here from lunch money and go buy comic books. That just doesn't work anymore. The economic of comic books have changed so much that it's priced out. Okay, at the end of the day, the hobby has priced out younger readers, and that bothers me so much more than anything. And one of the reasons why I have a hard time supporting the current industry, because a big part of me, even though I can afford to pay for the books today, I just don't want to support this industry that have all intention, do not care to bring in younger, newer readers because they price them out. you know, and the logic is, oh, you know, kids don't read comic books. There's so much nonsense behind that statement.